Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel. I hope everybody is having a good Monday, and I know that I haven't done a tier list like this in probably about 3 or 4 months or so, but nevertheless, here we are. We're about to do the 2022 GOP Senate candidate tier list, so you can cue that Fox NFL theme song. In the meantime, obviously, we can't do that, mainly because of copyright purposes, but it's time to get started. But first, I have to tell you guys the rules of this tier list. Number one rule is this is only going to focus on relatively known candidates and primary challengers. That includes no long shot states. I do have one Republican on here from Colorado. Anything past that is considered off limits. So that is number one. Number two is the fact that incumbents will not be included unless they face a primary challenger threat. So no Marco Rubios, no even Mike Crapo, mainly because he doesn't exactly have a primary challenger yet. Again, I will probably do updated versions of this in the future, and I will update them and we will change up the candidates, especially as more candidates drop out eventually. Rule number three is the candidate has to have been declared. I made one exception for Chris Sununu because a lot of people expect him to run, but if he actually doesn't, we'll remove him from this one next time because I'll probably do one later this year, and then we'll do one after the primaries are concluded, talking about, potential incoming GOP senator tier list. We'll do that there. So there will be a part two eventually and possibly a part three. Now, how will I rank these candidates? It's mainly going to be based off of policy, electability, and their past is going to be thrown in there as well. But mainly it's going to focus on policy. Obviously, there will be exceptions. For example, Chris Sununu, if he was running in Arkansas, probably would be an F-tier candidate or so. But because he would be representing New Hampshire, we're going to cut him some slack. And the same thing would go from a super national populist type of candidate running in a place like Rhode Island or Massachusetts, but they're not going to be on this list, so there's really no need to do that. So without further ado, I have 30 candidates, and we are going to finally get started here. We're going to start up here. We're going to go in alphabetical order by first name because that is how I saved these pictures. And I will also leave a link in the description just in case any of you guys want to do this as well, and then tweet out whatever Senate tier list that you guys have at me. I'm probably not going to retweet it, I'll be honest, but I might see it and then take a look and see what you guys have to say. Obviously, you can comment down below what you would do differently. I'm sure that there's going to be a few controversial decisions that I'm making here, and that's okay because obviously you're not going to make any changes in a movement without rocking the boat a little bit and raising some tough questions. But without further ado, Adam Laxalt, we start with you. Adam Laxalt is in Nevada. Laxalt, I think, would be pretty solid for Nevada. He was the attorney general for several years. He was a staunch ally of Donald Trump, but again, he held elected office beforehand. He never really wavered. It wasn't like he was one of those rhinos who opposed anti-establishment politics and then just decided that when Trump got in that he was just all pro-Trump from the beginning. He's been pretty solid all throughout. I wouldn't say he'd be the top of this list, but he definitely can win and would be a great senator from the state of Nevada. So for that reason alone, we are going to put Adam Laxalt in the top of the B tier here. Blake Masters running in Arizona. A lot of people are mad at me when I'm pushing for Blake Masters because they say he can't win. Now, Blake Masters is somebody who doesn't really tie himself to Trump 100%. He likes Trump. He supported Trump back in 2016, unlike J.D. Vance. However, Blake Masters is somebody who is kind of like a grassroots populist on his own, but he does have backing from mega donors as well, but they're populist mega donors, the same mega donors who backed Trump back in the 2016 primaries because they saw Trump as this nationalist and populist figure. But Blake Masters has great optics. He will be great for Arizona. He is a family man. He can appeal to those women in the suburbs because he's a Chad. They will simp for him. It's true. We're going to see that happening. And honestly, Trump will support him and endorse him because his opponent, Mark Brnovich, is essentially downright awful. on a lot of issues and kind of bungled the whole post-election process. So he's going to get Trump's endorsement. He's going to be the nominee. People are going to say, well, he can't win the general election because Arizona only likes neocons. Not true. Debunked. Fake news. 2010, they elected a Tea Party governor. Paul Gosar and Andy Biggs and Debbie Lesko are some of the most populist representatives in the country. They're all from Arizona. So yes, there is a large division of the population that was never Trump, and they like John McCain. However, that populist coalition is there too. I'm not saying Arizona is a populist state, but as you have many Midwesterners moving down to Arizona, definitely they get their input in politics put on that stage in the state itself. So ultimately speaking, partially why Martha McSally didn't win Arizona, but Trump kind of essentially tied Biden there this time around, was because of the fact that Donald Trump had more populist appeal. Trump won that primary in the state back in 2016, so obviously he is very electable. I don't want to hear otherwise. In fact, you need something new to beat Mark Kelly, not more establishmentarian politics. Blake Masters goes in the S tier. Chris Sununu, he goes in the C tier for cookie because everybody knows he's cookie man. He eats cookies all the time and he takes the pictures with them. But honestly, I'm not super thrilled with his policy all around. But I will say that he's pretty solid. He was an ally of Trump, and he will do just fine in New Hampshire. I don't have a problem with him. Daryl Glenn in Colorado. He'll go in the D tier for Daryl. Well, not actually for Daryl. Daryl was kind of a never-Trumper back in 2016 because he thought that it would help him win in the Senate, but actually he even underperformed Trump in the margin in Colorado. We're going to put him in D tier just because he's, fairly weak. He's a flip-flopper, and he's only going to be a sacrificial lamb. I only included him because maybe it will be within 10 points, therefore it fit the threshold. But other than that, we'll put him in D tier. On this list, we have Eric Greitens. Eric Greitens was the former governor of Missouri who essentially got ousted in a scandal, but he is on the comeback. He is making a comeback. He is running for Senate. I don't have a problem with him, but the electability thing is a factor. I don't want to have to divert funding to Missouri because this guy has scandals. Obviously, I think he'd still win by around 10 points, even if the Dems do find their fake moderate candidate to run that can fool some boomers. But other than that, I think we'll put him in the C tier. So up next, we have Gary Black. One of the 3 black men that are running for Senate in the state of Georgia. But Gary Black is going to go in the D tier because he's just a fairly standard Republican. Nothing really stands out about him. He's arguably the weakest candidate on policy. Could he win the general? Possibly, but other than that, what has he even done as agricultural secretary? Not much, except getting sued by Nikki Fried that one time because she's crazy. But now we have Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker is going to go in the B tier for ball because he played football. That's a joke as well. But beyond that point, Herschel Walker is somebody who was a staunch ally of Trump from day one. He is a former college football star at the University of Georgia and former NFL player. Very weak on the issue of trade, for those who get that joke reference. But other than that, I have no problem with him. He says that he's ready to drain the swamp. He's an outsider. He will probably cause a little bit of a ruckus from time to time on the Senate, and he has a flawed past. But I like that about him. I really do. Same reason why I like Donald Trump. And I think Herschel Walker will put him in B tier. He'll be pretty solid. Up next, we have Jackson Lemire, who is a primary challenger to the awful James Lankford, and he is running in the state of Oklahoma. Now, Lemire has been endorsed by a lot of members of Trump's circle, which leads me to believe that there is actually a pretty good chance that he is going to get Trump's endorsement. I like the guy. I don't think he's like the strongest of them all on the issues when it comes to being a primary challenger, but I think he's just fine. He will be a massive upgrade over James Lankford. We're going to put him at the top of the B tier. The next football guy on this list is going to be Jake Baguette. Baguette played football at Arkansas, and then he played for the New England Patriots in the NFL. Now, Baguette essentially is a primary challenger to John Boozman. This guy entered the race after Jan Morgan, who got 30% against Hutchinson in a year where Hutchinson was the most popular governor consistently in Morning Consult, which again has its flaws, but pretty much all the approval polls had Hutchinson in like the 60s. Statewide was pretty popular. Morgan did just fine. Now, MAGA Inc. is astroturfing their candidate to essentially stop Morgan from primarying Boozman. I don't have too much against this guy, but it's clearly evident what his agenda is. We're going to put him in the D tier. Speaking of James Lankford, we'll put him in F tier. This guy literally apologized for questioning developments surrounding the election because he said it was racist and offensive to black people. What does that even mean? I don't know. Obviously, it has nothing to do with that whatsoever. But instead, he'd like to virtue signal to the left instead of stand up for issues. He has a horrible grade from Numbers USA. From all of the think tanks that are fairly solid, he has poor grades from. Not to mention his rhetorical failures time and time again on multiple fronts. But he's a virtue signaler. He talks like a leftist from time to time. We don't want any more of that in our party. Jan Morgan, she's advocating for an immigration moratorium, by the way, which is pretty based, and she has a lot of based advisors. She's running in Arkansas. Arkansas should be the number one most conservative Senate delegation. Instead, you have Boozman, and you have the other guy, Tom Cotton, who is good on domestic issues, but when it comes to national security issues overseas, he is not too good when it comes to intervention. Jan Morgan would be a massive upgrade. She's America first through and through. I would support her 100%. We'll put her up in A tier. Up next, we have J.D. Vance, arguably the most controversial guy on this list. And a lot of the dislikes you're going to see on this video are probably because of this decision, one way or another. But it's just my honest opinion. Now, Vance clearly on the issues is better than everybody in D tier, everybody in F tier, and probably everybody in C and B as well. But the truth is, he has a storied past. It didn't support Trump until 2018. And while that is not entirely going to be a deal breaker for me, it's mainly the way he did it to the point where he was already supporting Trumpian policies before, but he was trashing Trump's rhetoric as racist. And I know he claims to have changed and everything like that. Again, he's had some life-changing events over the past few years. He's come into the Catholic faith and everything like that, and that's good. But still, it does make a lot of people remain skeptical and really showcases his lack of judgment given the fact he supported Evan McMullin back in 2016. So I really can't say that I'm a super big supporter of this guy, especially when you have, Washington Post articles that are writing glowingly of him. It breeds a little bit of skepticism. But I'm going to put him in C tier, and yes, he may actually be the best of all the candidates in Ohio, at least on this list, because a lot of their small candidates may be better, but they don't really have a chance. So it's kind of a high-risk, high-reward thing with Vance. We could even create the V tier and put it somewhere in between B, C, or D, but that's a little bit beside the point. Up next on this list, we have none other than Jeff Bartos, the former lieutenant governor candidate running in Pennsylvania. This guy is kind of a distraction. It doesn't really seem as if he really has much to bring to the table. He's not really that strong of a candidate. He got decked in the governorship election back in 2018, even though that was bound to happen anyways. But still, I don't find this guy notable at all. He doesn't stand out in any way whatsoever to me, and he's just there essentially to suck air out of the room and to take votes away from Parnell. We're going to put him in D tier. Up next on this list, we have none other than John Boozman himself. Again, horrible for Arkansas. We'll put him in F. Up next, we have none other than John Thune in South Dakota. Actually, we need to make we had a mistake here. We need to add the G tier right here. There we go. Now we have the G tier. We're going to put this guy right here in G tier. He is Mitch's bitch. Okay, excuse the language, but it's so true. This guy does nothing but simp for Mitch McConnell. And honestly, Donald Trump will find a primary challenger for this guy if he keeps his word. If not, I don't know. The whole Trump thing, it really would showcase a little bit more of a downfall in that regard. But this guy essentially sits up here and does nothing but serve corporate interests, just like Kristi Noem does as governor. And he's been really just a massive shill for mass immigration. He trashed Trump time and time again. Hasn't stood out in any regard to the point where he does nothing but take air out of the room. And he's in our leadership right now. If Mitch McConnell goes, this guy would take over and he'd be Mitch 2.0. We don't want Mitch 2.0. Okay, so we're going to get rid of him. We're going to get rid of him now. Okay, we're going to primary challenge him out of there. His career is going to be over. Josh Mandel. This guy might even make another addition to the G tier, but I think we're going to save the G tier for John Thune. Mandel is pretending right now to be Trump's biggest fan, which is laughable. 2016, he endorsed Rubio in the primary. He was nowhere to be found for the general election. Then he puts in his Twitter bio, first statewide official to support Trump. All he did in 2016, he praised Trump in like December after the election when he was thinking about running for Senate in 2018. This guy is a scumbag. This guy is a liar. He needs to stay as far away from Washington, D.C. as he possibly can. Everybody wants to talk about J.D. Vance and his non-support for Trump. That is true. But we don't hear enough about Josh Mandel's, obviously, because that is also a major problem. Mandel, he's missing Mandel. He's only there when he wants to run for office. He underperformed Mitt Romney in 2012, which I don't even know how is possible in Ohio, given how elitist that Mitt Romney is. And also the blatant fact that Mandel, if you look at his Twitter account, he literally got a waitress. I don't know if he got her fired, but he was like saying, oh, this waitress came into work sick and she's like handling food. So essentially he's so unself-aware to the point where he's like, that's hard work. It's pandering. All he does is pander. I think it's disgusting, okay? As an actual conservative voter, I'm just perturbed by the disgusting pandering from Josh Mandel to the point where I wouldn't even want to consider him in a primary. Up next, we have none other than the Katie Britt. Katie Britt is running in the state of Alabama. Again, she's just there to suck energy out of the room, an establishment pawn. Previously worked for Richard Shelby, who is a rhino. She's just going to take votes away from none other than Mo Brooks, who is so great. So we're going to put her in D tier. Up next, we have Kelly Tshibaka. Tshibaka's fairly solid in the fact that she's going to be going out there and taking on Lisa Murkowski, who is the worst Republican senator in the entire country right now. And Kelly Tshibaka, you look at Kelly Tshibaka, she's all right overall, and she would be a massive upgrade over Murkowski. Up next, we have none other than Calvin King. Calvin King is running in Georgia, former businessman, coordinated with the Trump administration. But at the time when we thought Herschel Walker wasn't going to run, he was the guy in the election night video that I did that was running for Senate in the state of Georgia. I like the guy. I don't have too much against him, but I know that he's not the best candidate. I'd rather have Herschel Walker, so we'll put him in C tier. Up next, we have Lisa Murkowski, and actually we need to do this. We need to make another row here. This one is going to be labeled the Z tier. We're going to put this right here, and Lisa Murkowski will go here. Now, yeah, Murkowski may not have as much influence as somebody like John Thune, who should be primary. That is true, but Murkowski and her voting record has been by far the worst. It's way worse than Susan Collins. It's just awful all around. And obviously, she is a moderate. She is a Rockefeller Republican. But she doesn't represent Massachusetts or even Maine. She represents Alaska. Alaska is a solidly Republican state. I know Trump only won it by 11 points or something like that, and that it was closer than it's been in years past. But still, you should not be voting the way that you're voting in a safe red state. Lisa Murkowski is a rhino. She's not even just a rhino. She's the definition of a rhino. You look rhino up at a dictionary, you get a picture of Lisa Murkowski. We're going to put her in the Z tier. She needs to be primaried first and foremost, and it essentially would be a flip into the Republican column. So beyond that point, beyond Lisa Murkowski, we have Mark Brnovich, the aforementioned Mark Brnovich, running in Arizona. I'm not a fan of this guy. I wouldn't say he's as bad as the people in F tier. He'd be an upgrade over Mark Kelly, and yeah, it is a swing state. So obviously, if he was running in a state like Indiana, he'd be F tier. But he's bottom of the D tier. I'm not really a fan of him altogether. It seems as if he bungled several post-election processes and pre-election lawsuits as well, to the point where we're going to put him in D tier. And it's not just that. It's just the fact that all around he's been a part of the Phoenix establishment, the Maricopa County Republican establishment for so long. And you easily could get Blake Masters, and that contrast is just huge. Blake Masters is chilling up there in S tier all by himself for right now. But you have this guy in D tier. Speaking of the alphabetical order thing here, we did miss one Jane Timken because the original picture that I found and put in didn't process for some reason. So Timken's at the end. Timken and Mandel are, I think, one in the same. Timken is arguably even worse when it comes to the Trump thing, but she does it in a more subtle way. She literally, on her website, there was a section called endorsements, and she had a picture of her and Trump there, and the Trump campaign was not too happy, but she's scheming voters, and I don't like that, and she shipped jobs away to China as well. Many jobs were shipped away to China. Again, where was she in 2016? That's another question. Vance wasn't there, but neither was Timken or Mandel. And then Timken's going out there and flip-flopping on the Trump impeachment vote for Anthony Gonzalez, and that's not cool either. We don't want to see that. So, again, Ohio, fix your state, please. Jim Tressel should run. He has my full endorsement, but I don't think he's going to do it. Up next, we have Mark McCloskey. McCloskey is known for being that guy who the BLM went up to his house, and him and his wife came out and defended their property, and they were pardoned by the governor, I believe, for defending themselves. Fairly noble action all around, but beyond that point, this guy's running for Senate, and I'm not so sold on him. He kind of had one of those ads that's kind of just like the stereotypical, like, conservative ad where they think that, playing some SoundCloud rock music in the background and then saying all of these platitudes that are just so generic, it's going to make a whole lot of difference. And I don't hate the guy, but I don't think he's like a super solid candidate from Missouri. The guy was a Democrat until recently, and obviously he had a life-changing event as well, and he was a fairly conservative Democrat where he was, just like a lot of the people in the state of Missouri, but he's fairly unproven, just like J.D. Vance. We'll put him in seats here. Up next, we have none other than Mark Walker. Mark Walker is the more establishment choice running in North Carolina, but Ted Budd is better, and this guy essentially didn't get Trump's endorsement, so I don't know if he's even going to win the primary anymore, but he was leading in the polls. What are his policies? Do we know where he stands on a lot of issues? No, we really don't. He's not really an outspoken critic against globalization or mega corporations that have gone woke, that are essentially destroying everything. But this guy, we're gonna put him in top of the D tier. Fairly unproven. He's not going to be the guy anyways. I don't think we need to focus on him too much, but we can focus on Mo Brooks. Mo Brooks running in the state of Alabama, and he will be a good senator. He should have gotten the nod back in that 2017 special election. But either way, we're going to put him up in A tier. Mo Brooks is a solid candidate, tough on immigration, tough on trade, tough on cultural issues as well. That's also important. We're going to put him in A tier. He arguably could be a candidate to go in S tier as well. But up next, we have Sean Parnell. Parnell's running in Pennsylvania. And looking at his track record, he is somebody who will represent the state fairly well. He has great optics. He's going on Tucker lately. He's getting even better on the issues than he already was when he ran for Congress back in 2020. Came so close to winning. Parnell's going to win this time. I really do believe he will. He'll beat Fetterman. He'll beat fake moderate Conor Lamb as well, who wants to get rid of the filibuster. And Parnell is somebody who will be a competent senator. We're going to put Parnell up in S tier. He's pretty good. So now we go down back to the state of North Carolina. We have Ted Budd. Ted Budd, all around, is probably the most America First representative in North Carolina. He's now running for Senate, and he's got Donald Trump's endorsement. It's a red-leaning swing state that will probably stay Republican for at least the next few cycles from the looks of it. It's a different state compared to Georgia, demography-wise, especially in terms of education. And we are going to move Ted Budd up into the A tier. He will be solid, and he will probably be senator there. He'll win in 2022, probably win in 2028. Don't know what's going to happen beyond that point, but he'll be a good senator and a massive upgrade over Richard Burr, who, by the way, would be an F tier, a corporate shill called insider trading. Yeah, that's draining the swamp. Honestly, it will be draining the swamp when you replace him with Ted Budd. So up next, we have Tim Scott. Tim Scott, again, we'll put him in the F tier, most overrated senator on the Republican side. Everyone's saying, Tim Scott 2024, why? What policies of Tim Scott do you like? That's the question you ask them. And, we voted for Trump like 90-some% of the time. And it's like, okay, well, so did a lot of people. So did Mitt Romney. That's not a selling point. You have to look at where the crucial votes are as well. Now, there weren't a whole lot of them, but Tim Scott would not support the RAISE Act if it was up for vote. Tim Scott is somebody who definitely is not an immigration restrictionist. He's not a trade protectionist. He's an interventionist overseas, just like Lindsey Graham, who he is very involved with in South Carolina, per se. Tim Scott also is a BLM simp. He simps for BLM all the time. Every single event where you see the BLM in uproar, Tim Scott will also be in uproar complaining about how racist police officers truly are. And then he wants to sit there and be the face of the GOP when it comes to racial issues. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think somebody like Herschel Walker, who doesn't play identity politics as much, would be a much better senator than Tim Scott. So all the neocon mafia is going to be like, you don't like him, you must be racist or something, which is laughable given how much I shilled for John James back in 2020. But I don't really care what they think about me because they're irrelevant. But beyond that point, Tim Scott is getting praise from a lot of people because of tokenism, from a party and movement that so desperately wants to get rid of identity politics. They praise Tim Scott a lot, even though Tim Scott is awful. But Tim Scott is a primary challenger. That's why he's on this list. Tim Swain. Tim Swain, yes, right now in the polls and fundraising is definitely not the favorite at the moment. But that doesn't mean that things can't change. I think that Tim Swain, if you look on the issues, he's pretty much in lockstep with Jan Morgan, who's in the A tier on a lot of them. I do believe he can win a general election, but we'll have to see. Hopefully we can try to get Trump to change his endorsement or something, or Tim Swain can get some more campaign infrastructure. He's growing pretty fast on Twitter. We'll put him in A tier. Who knows? Obviously, we've seen far bigger upsets than Tim Swain. But the grassroots needs to wake up a little bit. That includes whoever's writing Trump endorsement recommendations. Up next, we have Vicky Hartzler. Solid on all the issues, under the radar type of candidate running in Missouri. If Jason Smith doesn't run, she's probably the best candidate. We'll put her up in A tier, actually. So here you go. Here is our tier list. Up in the S tier, we have Blake Masters and Sean Parnell. We have the A tier, the B tier, the C tier, the D tier, the F tier, the G tier, and the Z tier. And I know some people might not like who's in the B tier or C tier. Definitely a lot of people have been very vocal about criticizing J.D. Vance, and I understand those criticisms, but just that really speaks volumes more about the Republican Party than what I personally feel about Vance or what I personally feel about, a guy like Chris Sununu, even though Sununu kind of is bumped up because of the state that he's in. Either way, hopefully we can elect the highest tier candidates into the United States Senate next fall, but we'll have to see. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.